Hello everyone, welcome to this webinar. We're going to wait a few minutes and then we're going to start. Okay, perfect. I think we can start. Welcome everyone. Thank you for joining this webinar. Today we're going to dive into how financial institutions are not just meeting the requirements of DORA, but actually leveraging that to build a stronger, more resilient future. Our focus for today will be the realm of software management and security. We'll explore these elements that are a central part of this regulation, and we can see how they can be used to enhance resilience and operational efficiency. If you have any questions during the session, as soon as you have them, you can drop them in the chat, and we'll try to attend to them as soon as we can. And we're also going to have a dedicated Q&A at the end. Here's the plan for today. First, we'll cover the basics, the why, what, who, and when of DORA. Then we're going to talk about how to actually achieve compliance with confidence. This is about real-world solutions that organizations have already implemented in order to meet this upcoming regulation. And at the end, we're also going to cover how to actually turn this compliance requirement to an advantage. So stay tuned. So hi again, I'm Danny Parizada. I'm a senior solution engineer at JFrog. I work closely with customers on DevSecOps, on resilience strategies. So basically every day I meet up with companies, most of them are from the financial realm, to take steps forward in securing software supply chain, if it's working on cloud native strategies, and even most recently MLOps efforts. So I listen to their unique setups, to their compliance requirements, and together we design solutions that will not only strengthen their security, but also help them accelerate their processes. Feel free to stay in touch. You have my contact information here. We can have a discussion. We can see how we can help you too. Before we get rolling, I would love to find out who's in the room besides myself. So take a second to answer this poll. What's your role? If you're DevOps, security, leadership, you can see the options on the screen right now. This will help me kind of tailor what's important for you. Okay. Let me see the poll, see if I can see the responses. Okay, I think we can continue. I'm not sure how to see the responses, but I trust that there's a variety of people who are interested, whether it's from how to actually comply to GRC led me to meet those requirements, or is it leadership that's trying to understand? So let's start. We'll start with the why. Why do we even need a regulation in the first place? So the financial sector has been facing a growing wave of digital threats, right? cyber attacks, service outages, or even complete system disruptions. For attackers, financial institutions are highly attractive due to the sensitivity of the data that they hold. There's a huge potential here of financial gain, of course. They can create ransomware and then they can demand a lot of money in exchange to restoring the data or preventing data leaks. Another big challenge is the increasing reliance on third-party providers. So these financial institutions depend more and more on cloud services, software vendors, managed service providers, as you know from your system, to actually operate efficiently. But what happens when these third-party providers, they don't have the same level of security or resilience that the financial institutions have themselves? This creates a major vulnerability. And a single weak link in the supply chain can expose the entire system to a risk. As you can see, I've added here a few general stats from 2021. This is when they kind of thought about making a decision. Again, these are just the general market, but as we established, it also applies on financial institutes. So we recognize that there are growing risks. The European Union stepped in to ensure that the financial institutions have the necessary tools or knowledge to actually achieve digital resiliency. So they set three main goals. You can see them here on the screen. One is to build stronger resilience in financial services. So the idea is not just how to withstand attacks, but actually avoid them in the first place. So spot gaps before they turn into major issues, and not just when something goes wrong. So staying one step ahead of the threats. Second one is to keep essential financial services running even during a digital disruption. So these are very critical financial services, payment operations. They need to operate even during a crisis, or at least to maintain their core services. And the third one is to set strict rules to manage those third-party risks. So if you establish some sort of standard, the providers can meet the security resilience requirements of the financial institutions, and then you kind of close the gap. So basically, these objectives were set, and this is kind of the origin of the regulation that will eventually become DORA. Poll number 2. It's a quick check-in. How familiar are you with DORA? I want to know if this is the first time that you're hearing about it, if you're already acquainted, maybe you already saw a bit of content about that. Feel free to answer the poll. Okay, perfect. Results are in. So it's interesting. We have a variety here of responses. So let's align everyone on what exactly is DORA. We understood that a regulation is needed. It's important. So DORA was created. DORA stands for Digital Operation Resilience Act. And this is the new EU regulation that is designed to enhance the operational resilience for financial institutions. DORA was developed by the European Commission, the European Parliament, and the European Council. And they focus on the three key objectives that we saw before, right? Improving the security by identifying risks and setting policies, creating security frameworks that will ensure that the IT systems and the networks, they remain operational even when a cyber attack or a technical disruption occurs, and setting strict standards to apply on service providers too, so there are no gaps throughout the supply chain. Now, DORA is structured around 5 key pillars, which we'll cover later on in this webinar. But the broader goal of DORA is to actually create a standardized framework for digital resilience across the entire financial sector. So this ensures that it doesn't really matter where the financial entity operates within the EU. It follows the same standards, same protections, same procedures. DORA also promotes a culture of collaboration with incident and information sharing. That means that when one bank experiences an incident, they will share the details of the threat with other institutions to prevent other attacks somewhere else. And DORA also focuses beyond just technology. We'll not focus on that today, but it's important to state. It also emphasizes peoples and processes. It calls for clear roles and responsibilities, effective communication, and well-defined recovery plans. So when a disruption happens, everyone knows their roles, they can respond efficiently, and it just reduces the havoc and the stress levels. The who. Okay, this is interesting. Who actually falls under the DORA umbrella? So DORA was purposely designed to cover a broader range of organizations, not just like traditional financial institutions like banks. You can see it also applies to insurance companies, payment institutions, or even newer players in the market like cryptocurrency exchanges. And then DORA extends, of course, to those third-party ICT providers, ICT standing for Information and Communication Technology, companies that offer essential IT systems such as cloud providers, cybersecurity firms, software vendors, or even managed service providers. So you're here, right? You might be working in a financial organization, and your organization might be providing services to those financial institutions as part of their software supply chain, but you're not quite sure if you need to comply with DORA or not. To determine, you can ask yourself a couple of these questions. Do you provide ICT services like cloud, cybersecurity, data analytics that are essential for the operation of financial institutions? Do you handle process data that is essential for them? Does your organization rely on third-party or open source component, which is a part of the digital infrastructure for your financial clients? Or can your products or services be connected to the internet or other networks, potentially exposing financial institutions to cyber risks? If you answered yes to these questions, DORA requirements likely apply to you too. When? Let's understand the timeline here. When do these requirements kick in? Give you a quick hint, it's now. So how much time do we actually have? Well, DORA was officially adopted in December 22 by the European Parliament and Council. Then in January 23, the regulation came into force, starting a 2-year implementation period. That means that technically DORA is already in effect, but we're in a period that we like to call the prep phase, right? This phase gives the financial entities and their ICT providers until January 25 to become fully compliant. So this is like a warning system, right? You've been given a heads up, you know what's coming ahead, and now you need to get your systems ready and aligned with these new standards. Now, January 25 is not far off, right? It's actually pretty close. And considering the amount of groundwork that needs to be laid from assessing your current risks to actually having strategies in place, time is on the essence here. What happens after 25? Well, this is where the supervisory authorities can enforce the rules and impose penalties for non-compliance. So this implementation period is actually a grace period. And given the fact that these are new measures needed time to adopt, you should be actively looking into that or actively promoting the compliance of DORA within your organization. It's not something that you can rush through. It's an actual shift that requires planning and a phased approach. So again, as the headline suggests, the timing is now. We kind of looked at the end picture of someone getting a fine. So let's just talk quickly about penalties because let's be honest, regulations are one thing, but what really grabs the attention is what happens if you don't meet them, right? No one wants to meet this frog officer in person. So DORA introduced a series of pretty significant penalties for non-compliance. You can see if it's a financial entity that failed to comply, the fine can be up to 2% of their total annual turnover. and up to 1 million euros, the higher one. And when it comes to third-party ICT providers, the bar is higher, up to 5 million euros. But it's not just about the money, as the song suggests. There's also non-financial penalties that can have a huge impact on your operations. So, for example, authorities can suspend or even withdraw licenses, which could effectively shut down your business. They can issue a public warning, and this can create reputation damage or loss of customer trust. And these kind of heavy sanctions are due to not meeting critical compliance. And also supervisories, they have the power to impose other restrictions, like limiting the opportunities that you have, or even limiting engagement of certain businesses within the EU. But if compliance is a must, why not turn it into an advantage? Instead of viewing DORA as an obstacle, you can think about it as an opportunity to actually strengthen your processes, boost efficiency, and enhance the productivity. So DORA isn't just about avoiding problems, it's a framework that can help you actually build resilience and streamline operations. So if you're investing in compliance measures, you're not just protecting your organizations, you're actually setting them up to be more stronger, more resilient, and be able to grow quickly and efficiently. Last poll of this webinar. I'd love you to kind of be honest, transparent, and answer this question. Do you think your organization is actually impacted by DORA? And are you compliant? So I'll give you a few moments to answer that. Perfect. Okay, let's continue. So we talked a bit about the regulation coming up, the when, the who, the why. Let's actually break it down, and we'll talk about those 5 key pillars. So each pillar addresses a specific area of the operation resilience, and we'll just walk them through. And again, they talk about processes, people, systems, but we'll try to cover them and then see how we can actually take actionable items from them. First up is the ICT risk management framework, which basically covers everything from tracking digital assets to identifying risks and having a clear plan in place. So it's like having a full inventory of what you have and knowing exactly how to protect it. Next, there's digital operation resilience testing. Basically, you need to regularly validate resilience through simulation, stress tests, so actively shutting down your system, checking your backup systems, the response plans that will take effect actually in real life scenarios. Third, we have ICT incident reporting, which is a clear process of identifying, classifying, and reporting the digital incidents. So here, transparency is crucial, right? It's not just resolving the incident, but it's also learning from them and avoiding it happening in the future. The fourth pillar is information sharing. And this is what we talked about, the culture of communication between the different entities. So this is like a neighborhood watch program, but for cybersecurity, right? And the idea is that if one institution spots malware or vulnerability, the community can share the information so other organizations can protect themselves too. Finally, we have the ICT third-party risk management, which basically ensures that the vendors that we spoke about are resilient as you are. So it's checking them, validating, audit them, making sure that they are compliant with DORA too. In our next slides, we'll dive a bit deeper into how these pillars actually connect to practical actions, as I said, and how you can go beyond compliance to create real business value from this. As promised, we're focused today on the software area affected by DORA. So I divided it into two specific topics. So we'll talk about how to turn those pillars into actionable items in day-to-day practices that can assist you with your software supply chain. So let's start from the security side. For the DevSecOps and SecOps, the focus is on security and compliance. So first of all, automate your SBOM creation. So SBOM stands for Software Bill of Material. It's like a detailed list of every component that you have in your software. And it's essential for staying compliant and tracking all your vulnerabilities. But that's not enough, right? This is just for monitoring. You still need an enforced policy in place to control your open source software, to restrict it if you need. And if something happens, to actually generate real-time alerts that are connected to metadata so you can quickly respond, but also know which team is responsible. Again, it's to reduce the stress levels and to react quickly. And then also shifting left. So identifying the issues before they become a problem. We talked about it as early as possible that you detect them. It's easier to actually resolve the issue. Now, shifting to the DevOps team, right? It's also crucial here to start with the basics. And the basic is having all your software in one location. So centralizing all the binaries. This single source secure repository is where you go to manage your builds, your packages, your containers. And basically, it's just giving you visibility across the whole development because you know exactly what you're working with. Then you also want to utilize the metadata. Again, identifying the people and the teams for those for those plans. Just 1 second. I'll be back. I have to pause here for 1 second. Okay, I am back, and we're talking about the DevOps team. One thing that we want to implement is also highly available or disaster recovery plans for the resilience tests. We talked about them, and then also regularly checking that they're effective and they come into action. And also to actually understand what is running in production and did it come from a trusted source, so some sort of an integrity validation. So we understand the basics here, and now I want to take you to how our customers use our tools to actually put them into action. So the first thing here is the software supply chain platform. Okay, so JFrog has this kind of platform that takes everything that we talked about and puts it in a holistic, kind of actionable place. So it's not a set of isolated tools. It's one platform that is built to kind of avoid integration fails because everything is natively built. And it starts with Artifactory. So Artifactory is a universal binary repository manager. It supports all the major packages type. And basically, this is where you start managing everything from the resources that you take from the registries to containers to Helm charts. And this creates a full visibility and transparency. Then you need to start working with your open source, right? You're taking these packages that someone else wrote, which is perfectly okay. And you want to make sure that they stand within the strict requirements that you'll have to comply with. So instead of just giving the developer an option to freely take anything from the internet, curation and catalog can actually create some sort of firewall to protect from dangerous, malicious packages, vulnerabilities, or even license issues within those sources. So think about it as an actual firewall between your organization and the open source registries. You can also maintain a list of every new component or every new dependency coming in, and also understand which team, which product needed it, and enforce it based on the environment that they're running on. The second one is once it gets into the software supply chain, you want to start securing it. So look at this kind of basic software supply chain phases that I listed here. Whether it's curate to avoid malicious packages, it's create. So when your developer is writing the code, they know exactly how to avoid 0 days, for example, with a tool like SAST. When the software itself is being packaged and uses and starts building those full components, you can introduce CVEs, you want to track them. And also when you promote them between environment, there are other non-CVE vulnerabilities that you need to be aware of. For example, secret detection, infrastructure as code issues, and also misconfigurations or misuse of applications. Shifting left, we talked about it quite a lot today, whether it's by bringing all your developers into the initiative of securing your applications by providing an IDE plugin so they can see what they're introducing to the organization. They can avoid critical issues even after they were introduced into the main binary system. And also doing the same thing on Git repos for automated pull requests, or on the CI, so a build can fail if it fails to comply with your policies. Lastly, runtime impact and integrity. This is the newest addition to the JFrog platform to actually complete the end-to-end kind of environment. And this makes sure that you remain secure also once you're running. So you not just identify the vulnerabilities that are actually running or are loaded to the memory, but you can also make sure that the images taken and running in production are from a trusted source, which means Artifactory. Now, what I want us to do for the last part of this webinar is to actually break down the 5 pillars that we talked about before, and kind of setting examples of how our customers are actively meeting the compliance to and utilize them not only to comply, but also to thrive. Okay, perfect. And this is of course, the message that if you can't control it, you can't comply with it. Okay, cool. We have the first one, which is the DORA ICT risk management framework. Basically, DORA requires to centralize the digital assets. Digital assets is everything also related to software components. And then also to maintain an SBOM to have a clear inventory of the software components, right? We talked about that too. Our customers use Artifactory and SBOM within the software solution to actually cache the packages that they use. So we talked about that too. Instead of developers going directly to registries, they cache the packages with Artifactory. So it's a proxy mechanism and a cache mechanism to ensure availability of the packages. So if a package is a critical component in your software development lifecycle, it cannot magically disappear because now you're managing this package. It also promotes faster building because it's cached locally. And you can also start monitoring and later on enforcing rules and policies on those packages. Control over artifacts is also something that they gain to thrive. So for example, you start promoting a release candidate, you can start scanning, testing, validating, and utilizing the metadata in order to understand the actual life cycle and trust your builds. Lastly is also managed access and automation. So you can start using API to promote automation. You are listing all the activity, whether it's a service account or a user. And basically now you have eyes, so you can investigate, you can reproduce, and you can respond very quickly. Number 2 is ICT incident reporting. So to comply here, DORA mandates to have an accurate and timely incident reporting for vulnerabilities and breaches. and also to keep historical records of incidents, changes, configurations, these kind of things. So to thrive, this is what our customers are using. They utilize JFrog Advanced Security capabilities, especially contextual analysis. Now, if you're working with CVEs, remediating CVEs, you know that there are a lot of packages, open source packages, that have CVEs in them. Okay, they're kind of assigned, or there's a vulnerability available in if you use this package. But if you're not using the vulnerable component within this package, this is a false positive. That means that no one can exploit it, no one can create a path to it, meaning it's not reachable. Contextual analysis actually does this work for you. So instead of investigating, reading, and looking into resources to understand whether it's a false positive or not, contextual analysis will mark, as you can see here on the screen, applicable or not applicable, meaning the applicable vulnerabilities are critical, you should take care of them, but it also gives you a mitigation plan, and also spots exactly where are the vulnerable functions that you're using that actually triggers this to be reachable. And then the non-applicable are also very useful, because you know that all these CVEs are in fact false positives, but DORA still requires you to disclose them. You need to mark them in an SBOM. You need to provide a list of, hey, I know that this has vulnerabilities, but they're not applicable. No one can take advantage of them. And then also others, risk detection, as we spoke before, like misuse of applications, misconfigurations, infrastructure as code issues, etc. Talking about shift left is also something that companies actively use in order to get ahead of the compliance and actually thrive, by bringing contextual analysis, SAST results, infrastructure as code, or secret detection to start all the way from the IDE plugin or FrogBot, which, as we said, scans on the Git level. Third one, digital operation resilience testing. So DORA requires a consistent testing, right, of all the assets, and to identify and fix any issues or vulnerabilities. Now, testing applications is something that you already do on a daily basis, right? You have a release candidate and you want to test it to make sure that it will run properly in production. And you want to continuously monitor it. Or basically, what our customers are actively doing, they requested a mechanism to actually validate that the same software that was built and promoted into Artifactory as a new candidate did all the processes, has been through all the tests, was validated, was scanned, in order to trust that the actual release candidate that we wanted made its way into production. So it can be by reducing bottlenecks, as you can see here, between different levels of maturity. If it's from dev to QA to pre-prod to production, to see where scans failed or where it's stuck. And then also to create an attestation or an evidence mechanism to actually list out all the tests that it's been through, whether they're internal or external. So you have it in order to investigate if you want it for internal reasons, or promote it outwards to an auditor, but the whole information is there. The fourth one is kind of important, and this talks about the open source software risks. So everyone uses open source, right? It makes sense not to write everything from scratch. Most software today is composed out of 85 to 90% open source components, and even 99% of Fortune 500, they use open source. Now, each year we see a jump in attacks targeting software supply chain, which exploit the weaknesses in these open source components. Just as an example, the first half of 23, there were over 6,000 NPM malicious packages reports. Now, these packages, they are in the registry. They find their way there. And there's a period of time where developers, CI systems, organizations can put their hands on them, and we want to avoid running them in our environment, right? A developer writing malicious code and running it can create ransomwares, can create data leaks, and we want to avoid that. To thrive, organizations are using curation. Curation is the firewall that we talked before. And I want to show you this picture that you see on the screen. You can see the cost of replacement translated into minutes and not funds, where you can see that if you catch it and you kind of remediate it on the curation level, this can cost you minutes. If it gets its way into the creation where the developers are building these applications, it can take hours. If it's the packaging, the CI, it can take days. And if it's already promoted all the way into production, that can take weeks to remediate. And this counts towards slower releases, developer friction, which is created, and you basically want to take everything to the left. So basically, curation is a set of policies that you create, whether it's avoiding malicious packages, avoiding high and critical CVEs, or even license issues. One of the things that curation does is actually list every new package or every new asset being brought into your organization for monitoring, for understanding, and it also reduces the manual labor because to comply, DORA requests to actually vet all the third-party software components and to ensure the integrity of them. So anyway, you'll have to do it whether it's manual or automated. So curation does it in an automated, developer approached based kind of way. Last but not least, it's the DORA information sharing. So to comply, you need to generate S-bombs for reporting, and also have a way to actually view all your digital and your digital assets for effective monitoring. So to thrive here, our customers have been using X-ray reports, X-ray being the security application for the software, dashboards that are purposely built for different personas in the organizations. So think as on an example, the most known infamous example, which is Log4Shell. Organizations can look for a specific CVE, understand where it's implemented to actually respond and react quickly instead of creating the kind of mess that Log4Shell left behind where organizations did not have a way to actually tie it. Cool. Before we wrap up, let's take a moment to dive into questions. I know we covered a lot of ground from the 5 pillars of DORA and steps and tools that you can that can help you achieve compliance. And again, we talked only about the software part. What can you do to not only help you meet the compliance, but also help you on your day-to-day efforts, whether it's security or operations. So feel free to drop your questions in the chat. We're here to assist you and help you. And just make sure I can see everything. Roy, Adi, do we have any questions that we can answer? Okay, I see a few questions here about integration. Yeah, so JFrog promotes integrations with service providers, with monitoring capabilities to actually create dashboards or an automated flow between them. So you can, of course, do that. Great. So basically, if you need anything, if you want to have a quick discussion about an upcoming compliance, and it doesn't have to be DORA, it can be CRA, it can be a specific region-related regulations for financial institutes, or it can be any request for better security or better operations, to learn from the market, to learn from the software leaders in this field. We're here to support. Again, you have my contact information here. I would like to thank you for joining to this session. It was a pleasure going through this with you. And I hope to see you guys very soon. Keep safe.